Great. Okay, is everyone ready to get started? Thank you all so much for coming. We're excited to host this event. This is our social justice event, Deaf People in Unique Careers. We know that when kids are growing up, they think about what they want to do when they become an adult, jobs that they want to do, different pathways they want to take. They're trying to find what will be successful for them in the future. So we have these two presenters to give us an idea. And before we start, I want to let you know that we'll have a Q&A at the end, so please hold your questions for then. And for those of you that are on Zoom, same to you, please hold your questions until the end after the presentations. We will have Harold that is on Zoom that is managing that. And for here in person, with the Q&A, intend to ask a question, please come to the front, we'll have a line. You can choose to use your voice to speak English, or you can sign your name yourself. We'll have an interpreter here that will either voice or sign for you. So everyone has access. So are you all ready to meet our two presenters? Yay. All right, so our first presenter, one of the two is Melody Stein, and the other one is Sharon Zabi. Melody is a professional chef, and she has a business called Piola. Sharon is a forensic chemist. And so we will start first with Sharon. So please give her a warm welcome.
All right, can everyone see me? Hello, everyone. I really wish that I could be there in person to see all of your faces and be there with you face to face, but unfortunately I'm not able to because I am way on the other side of the country in New York City, which is where I live and work. But hopefully I will be able to visit CSUN someday soon. So as mentioned, my name is Sharon Zabian. This is my name sign here. And I am a forensic chemist, as was just mentioned. So I guess I should just go ahead and get started and share my PowerPoint. So give me just a moment here to get that set up. And I'm going to share my slides, so just give me a moment here so I can get that set up. I don't have share permission, so some good. Figure out some technical stuff here in a minute. Can everyone see the slides? And Andrea there is saying, can you back up from your camera just a little bit so we can see a little bit more of you? There you go, that's perfect. Okay, perfect. Better view of you. All right, so I was thinking about what I want to say for my presentation. And I think I want to start by saying that everyone has a unique story to share about their lives. And I've chosen to focus on just one part of my life, which is my career as a forensic scientist. And a forensic chemist, more specifically. And when you think of chemistry, you know about the elements and bonds and breaking bonds. And I feel like I've broken through so many barriers, so many glass ceilings in order to achieve what I have so far in my career and in my life. Right, so I guess I'll start by talking about who I am. My family originally comes from Iran, and from Iran, they moved to Israel, which is where I was born. And I moved here to the United States when I was 7 years old. And the reason for that is because my biological grandfather had a heart attack when he was in his 30s. And the family started thinking about what they were going to do, what my grandmother was going to do. And there were many opportunities here in the United States, so my family decided to move here. We moved to New York, and I went to the Lexington School for the Deaf, which is in New York City, in Queens, which is quite a large K through 12 residential program, and that's where I learned American Sign Language. And really where I grew up, and I graduated from Lexington, but middle school at Lexington is where I really fell in love with science. And I first learned about Newton's laws. And that just clicked for me. It just made sense in helping me to understand and make sense of the world. So in high school, I really took an interest in chemistry. I wasn't such a biology person. People tend to get very excited about biology and DNA and want to know everything about that, but I was instantly interested in chemistry. And I went to Gallaudet after graduating from Lexington, and I got my bachelor's of science in chemistry in 4 years, and it was a really wonderful experience for me at Gallaudet, academically and socially. I met so many people from all around the world, and I had an excellent academic experience and athletic experience as well. And then once I graduated, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with myself. I considered becoming a science teacher, or maybe getting an advanced degree and being a professor at Gallaudet. But I wanted to immerse myself a little bit more in the hearing world and make a difference there as well. In addition to chemistry, I loved mathematics. My whole life growing up, I loved math. So I thought, how could I combine those two interests? And I thought about becoming a chemical engineer. So I went to Manhattan College here to get an advanced degree. I got my Master's of Science from Manhattan College as a chemical engineer. And it was a very frustrating experience for me. I faced a lot of challenges in an all hearing environment, in a hearing school, trying to work with interpreters. It was really quite a struggle for me. Trying to just figure out how to navigate an entirely hearing environment, and trying to also make sure that I was engaged in all the lectures and the extracurricular activities. And it would have been easy to give up, but I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to take the easy way out. I wanted to use this opportunity to educate people and also to become more confident being in the hearing world. And I guess, am quite a nerd. I'm fun too, so don't misunderstand inside this, but I was in cross country, I did track and field, I love rock climbing and going for hikes. I'm into CrossFit, I love all sorts of aquatic activities. But, and I believe that every day it's important to learn something. And that's part of why I'm here today, is I hope you all learn something new. That's a goal I set for myself as well. And I think it's also important in life to make sure you carve out quality time for yourself. Spend time with your friends, your family, your loved ones, and also take time to relax. We all rush through life day to day, but I like to remind myself to take some quiet moments. Life is, as they say, 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to that. You'll have a lot of things thrown your way, and you have to figure out how to navigate that, how to break through barriers, how to keep an optimistic mindset, and how to be successful. It's really about having that positive outlook on life. That's what I think anyways. That's what helped me get to the point of success that I'm at currently. Now, in terms of my professional journey, I started working at Lexington as a teacher. I attended there as a student, as I mentioned. I taught science and math, and I really loved the students there. Being able to communicate with other deaf people in ASL was fantastic for me, because also I realized I was a role model in that environment. But at some point I decided I wanted to branch out a little bit and enter into the hearing world. A technologist, and what they do there is they collect blood for people who donated blood or get blood tested. And they look for any sort of bloodborne pathogens. They're looking for cancer, they're examining blood cells. For example, when someone has cancer and they're going through chemotherapy, obviously there are issues with the blood cells, they're not functioning the way they should, and so they're getting transfusions to make sure that they have the appropriate amount of blood cells, and then they're being taken out. All of the science is being done to it, and then it's going back into the body so that they can get them healthy again. So there was a little bit of a biology component here, and also a bit of a human services component. But I was a chemical engineer, right? So I was trying to figure out what I could do that apply that a little bit more. And this was a pretty small organization. They were a nonprofit. They didn't really understand my needs for communication and for interpreters. And so my time there was short-lived before I applied to another position. So there was one day where I was sitting around and I was thinking, I'm not sure what I want to do. I was trying to figure out my next steps. So I went to usajobs.gov and I saw a position for a forensic chemist working for the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration. And so, I thought, I was familiar with the DEA. I'd seen it on TV shows and in movies, but I didn't really know much about it. So I decided to apply, and I got an interview for this forensic chemist position, and they were doing drug testing. They were checking for purity, they were filling out reports. Sometimes you would have to go and testify if someone had been accused of a DUI or something like that. And you would have to go to the courthouse and testify. So that was sort of the day-to-day of what my job looked like. And I'll show you a little bit about me back here. The subsequent slides. So I applied to the DEA, and it was not an easy process for me at all. I had an interview portion, and then there was a panel, and then they did a grammar test, they did a drug test, they were really checking all the details. And they sent me for a 4-month training where I lived in a dorm room. I went to classes. That's what these photos are. This is in Quantico, Virginia. I had to do a 4-month intensive study there in Quantico, which is a military base in Virginia outside of DC. It's a massive military complex. And the DEA was one component of that, along with the FBI. If you know the movie Silence of the Lambs, they show part of Quantico there. But that's where I was for a 4-month intensive, and it was really a school of hard knocks for me. It was a difficult journey. There was a lot of testing, a lot of lab work. We had a curfew, believe it or not. We had specific greetings we had to say. We had to greet people with good morning and good evening, and it was very formal. It was very structured. We're on a military base, so that's to be expected. And my journey there was difficult. I'll explain a little bit about it, but I wanted to show these images first. So we have our class flag here on the left, and it had always been the same. I had seen photos of what their past flags had looked like. And I said, why don't we have DEA spelled out in sign language there? Because I was the first ever deaf person in this role at the DEA. So I thought this would be a nice way to acknowledge that. And every class who's gone through has had a flag. And so my class was the 21st class, which is why it says 21 on the flag there underneath the DEA. And I mentioned that my journey was difficult, so I want to go into a little bit about how I ended up here. So this is a bit of a timeline. I applied in 2016 and then finally got an interview in 2017. The government does not move quickly, so it took quite a bit of time. And the interview included a physical exam. They did a physical test, they did an eye test, or a vision test, a hearing test, and so on and so forth. And they told me that I had passed everything, which was fantastic, but it took me forever to get the results. I had been waiting for a letter to arrive in the mail or perhaps an email to arrive. And I was starting to get a little agitated, so I reached out to them many times actually. And they said, oh, we're sorry, we thought you passed, but we'll send you an email explaining what's going on. And they said, you didn't meet our medical standards, therefore you've been declined. And the reason for this is because I didn't pass the hearing test. And I was crushed, I was sobbing, and my mom, who is my biggest fan, said, look me in the face, Sharon, you do not give up. So we reached out to lawyers, we contacted friends that we knew, we got people to write us letters explaining what the ADA is, and that they were opening themselves up for a lawsuit, and the DEA immediately retracted that, and they decided to give me another opportunity. So they gave me another chance to get in again, and I did, and I was hired 3 years after I initially applied. But I went into Quantico, remember I explained this 4-month intensive training, very structured and regimented on this military base. And it was important to have good quality interpreters, which I did not get initially. And I said, you know, these people you gave me are not good, they can't understand me, they can't understand the content that they're trying to interpret. And it was making it much more complicated for me. Because you have to pass everything in these intensive courses with an 80% or above, which was nearly impossible for me since I wasn't getting full access. So I kept failing the exams that I had to take, and eventually I ended up being kicked out. At which point I moved back home. And this was in 2020. And then in 2021, I went back to the DEA lab and I said, you know, this is really a result of accessibility issues. They weren't listening to me and understanding my communication needs. They didn't give me quality interpreters. And I said, you know, they had kicked me out of the program, but they hadn't fired me. And if they had, that could have been a whole entirely different issue in terms of accessibility. But I had an opportunity to come back to train one-on-one in a lab setting and then to reapply to the program. So I went back again, yes, once again, I went back to Quantico, and it was a massive improvement from the first time. They had the best interpreters ready for me, and the staff, it was so apologetic for how things had gone the first time. Some of them were even trying to learn some sign language so that they could communicate with me, and it was an incredible 4 months. And the end of which I was able to graduate, and I was chosen as the graduation class speaker, which was an incredible opportunity because I was the first deaf person to graduate from that program, and then also I was selected as the speaker. So I really, as I said, I struggled, and it was really challenging for me. And some people said, you know, you can just give up. Who cares? It's not that big of a deal, move on. But I wanted to prove that I could do it, and I did, even though it took me more than 5 years to get to this point. Once I finished that, I came back to an advanced lab environment. And where I work is fantastic because they all understand what my needs are. They get the appropriate accommodations that I need. I have access to BRS or BRI, I have an iPad. And also, I'm fortunate that I live in a city like New York, which is my home, and I just love being able to be back in my hometown. Now, let me give you an idea of what my day-to-day job looks like. Some days I'm analyzing marijuana under a microscope and testing it, or looking at the colors when we mix it with certain chemicals to see if it has THC in it. Sometimes we're testing cocaine or heroin or meth as well. We have all sorts of different drugs that we're testing in the DEA that are brought into us after there's been some sort of a drug bust. And then all the other forensic chemists and I will assess or analyze these drugs to see what the content of them truly is. And then also following that, we write up and submit reports. And now, of course, the hot topic is fentanyl, which is everywhere nowadays. And this is one of the deadliest drugs out there that can kill you even in small amounts. And it can be incredibly harmful. And you see this sort of rainbow assortment of pills. This is from a news clip. It's everywhere and it looks like candy. So sometimes people are misled into thinking that it's not as serious as it is, or that it'll help you relax or just feel a little sleepy. They think it's like oxy. It's not that big of a deal, but fentanyl is a big deal. It is an incredibly serious drug that you have to be very careful with. And then here are some more photos of me. You see me in this full getup here on the left. Because if you're in a warehouse, or if sometimes we have these large trailers where they are making different kinds of drugs, typically meth. Like if you're familiar with the TV show Breaking Bad, people have to go in there. And that's someone like me, a forensic chemist, will have to put on this whole suit and go out in the field, and I must be protected to make sure that I stay safe. And then in the middle is, let me show you, I have this plaque here. This is, not a plaque, interpreter correction, this is my badge, this is my official DEA badge. And I'm really proud of this, because I had to work hard to get to the point that I'm at today, and to make it is, it's something that makes me feel really proud. And then this picture here on the right is, me in one of the many classes that I had to go through for my training. So on the left here, you see a brick that says LA, has LA carved into it, the logo. This is actually a brick of cocaine. Sometimes you find these in trucks or on ships, and sometimes you'll find them by the millions, coming across the borders. And so this is something that we found in the drug bust. So oftentimes you see things that are stamped with different logos, and then you see and pick the LA one because you're all here in Southern California. And then Apple, company I love, but someone chose to put their logo to stamp that also into a brick of cocaine. There are also tablets that come in all different shapes, sizes, and colors. Some of them, this one here is designed to look like Donald Trump. So people are getting more and more creative with the designs that they're using, which makes it even more dangerous. And then the baggie on the right is crystal meth. So again, if you're familiar with Breaking Bad, this is what you saw on that TV show. And we have so many drugs, just millions and millions of examples of evidence that we've collected over the years. And then to sum it all up, I think what's important, especially for women, is to fight for your place in the STEM field, in the sciences. I like knowing that I've worked hard, but also that I'm an inspiration for young girls and women. So thank you all for inviting me to come share my story with you today.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Thank you so much. It's a wonderful presentation and very informational. Thank you so much. So let's go ahead to our second presenter, Melody Stein. And Melody, are you ready to go ahead? Did you want to share your screen? Okay, we're just going to pull up the PowerPoint.
Yes, let me share screens here. All right, hello everyone. My name is Melody. Here's my name sign next to my mouth. Yes, I'm so happy to be here to share with you my story. I set up several businesses, but today I really want to focus on what it is to be an entrepreneur. And I have chosen the food business to be my industry of choice. I was actually born in Hong Kong. My parents didn't realize I was deaf at the beginning. It wasn't until I was 2 that my grandmother responded that I wasn't responding to sounds around us in the environment. And so she suggested that my parents bring me to a doctor to have a hearing test. So once I was brought in for a medical exam, they did diagnose me as deaf, and my mom actually was pregnant with my younger brother at the time. And once he was born, they immediately brought him in for a hearing test, and my brother was also diagnosed as deaf. So here my parents were with 2 deaf children, not knowing what to do. But they had heard that America had good deaf education, so my parents decided to visit the US from Hong Kong, which you know is a very big distance. And California was the closest state in the US, right on the west coast to China. And the School for the Deaf here in California, which was at that time was in Berkeley, near San Francisco. That's what we did. So my parents visited both campuses in Berkeley and in Riverside. And at a certain point later, when the campus moved to Fremont in the Bay Area, I was accepted to the school, and our family decided to move in entirety to the Bay Area, to a completely new life and environment, and very overwhelming for us, by the way. So my parents wanted to find something that they could do. They had been business owners in Hong Kong, but they weren't sure what opportunities there'd be for them in the US. And they decided that they would go into the restaurant business, because my dad was already great at making Chinese food. So this was perfect for San Francisco. And I was already going to be going to the School for the Deaf in Fremont as not as a commuter student, but as an on-campus student. So my parents then had lots of free time to focus on their business during the week, as I would see them on the weekend, and they became quite inspirational to me. I wanted to be like my dad because he was so creative, trying to come up with something that would work for them in this new restaurant business, right? So I decided at that point that I wanted to be like my dad one day. So at the Fremont School, I realized as I looked around the community, there weren't any deaf-owned businesses around. So I thought, that would be a great opportunity for me later to be doing something unique, because there's so many hearing people that own businesses, but there's not deaf people who are doing that. So anyway, I kept that in mind. Once I graduated from high school, my motivation increased and my desire was there to really want to do this. I saw how much my dad was enjoying what he was doing. So at that point, I decided, and we'll look at my next slide at this point. You can see on the left the picture of the California Culinary Academy. At that time, and this was 1993, I put together my courage and filled out the application and sent it into the Culinary Institute. And as I was waiting for the results, they actually called my mother, because at that time, right, we had landlines, we didn't have a video relay service, and I don't even know if we had a TTY related relay service at that point, but anyway, my mother was called, and the person who was looking at my application realized that I was deaf because where I'd been to school, and was checking in with my mom to confirm the fact that I was deaf. My mother said yes. And then she heard the apology that I couldn't be accepted into the Culinary Academy because I was deaf, which was puzzling. I mean, it was not clear as to how they figured that out, but they had asked where I'd gone to school, right? So they looked at this California School for the Deaf as the name of my high school, hence deduced that I was a deaf person. So I was denied access to the school because the school itself was actually afraid of having a deaf student. It's a very busy setting with lots of students. They're making hot food items such as soups, and they were afraid that I would get in the way or soup would be spilled on me and someone would get injured. Hence, for them, it would be a liability. But that to me seemed like a simplistic excuse without any discussion with me about how we might avoid or resolve some of these issues or fears that they had. But it was very discouraging to me to receive this news. At the same time, I was applying for different types of jobs, like, how high school students work at local ice cream shops, right? So I could do that, I could get there by bike down the street, but I was even rejected from those kinds of seemingly simple jobs. So anyway, having said all this, I thought, well, if I can't get a job, then I'll go ahead and go to University of Gallaudet. And there I met my husband, my future husband, Russ, who is a business degree, who's in business school and working in the business department at Gallaudet. So we met there on campus, and I told him that my absolute dream in life was to set up a restaurant. And Russ's response was that statistically, 90% of restaurants fail within the first year. So he just tried to discourage me from that idea. And even though that was new information to me, I thought this has been just a part of a theme with me. I don't want people continuing to deny what it is that I would like to do, like a same old story. So then came one day that Russ, because he kept hearing me talk about setting up a restaurant being my dream job, that he said, you know what, this is something that you're so passionate about, you should go ahead and do it. So I'll move on to my next slide. Perfect. So this shows my roadmap, because I was so determined after all of these denials, I didn't want the US or people around me to decide my fate. I wanted to drive my own bus, so to speak. I wanted to make this dream happen and take full control of my destiny. So, because Russ was agreeable, the two of us were together, I thought, well, let's get on the computer and figure this out. Yeah, I know people from the United States, especially New York City, people love pizza. So at that point, I thought we would try and get interpreter correction. My husband Russ is from New York City. He's a big pizza fan. So I thought we would get a wood fire oven. So this was my next step, and I'm gonna wait for my screen to come back.
I'm gonna go ahead and ask Carol and see if she can troubleshoot. Sorry about that.
All right, everyone, sorry for that glitch. So going back to my roadmap of determination. So where we learned about Neapolitan pizza was to go learn in Italy, of course. And with an interpreter and my mother, we decided that we would take one-on-one classes in Italy. So we did this via 2 classes, and after my training, I started in the US, 6 months of practice of making Neapolitan pizzas. So that was in 2011 in the month of December. And I was so excited at the time, and these pictures are representing that experience. So as I said, this is all in response to all this rejection that I experienced. And in the Bay Area, this is where I've been turned down for so many jobs. And of course, my resume looked like I had no job experience. And Russ had a similar background, right? Nobody had given us a chance. So here we were, amongst many other deaf folks in the community who also needed job experience, that we could then come together and be a group of people who were learning how to do this. So I was really grateful to be able to show this kind of initiative and prove myself as a deaf leader and be able to give other deaf people time and opportunity to grow on the job. So after this first restaurant was established and we trained a number of workers, we sold that business in 2017, and I got into a clothing business with my 2 kids because they had a great desire to do something interesting and they actually wanted to get back to pizza. So next slide, please. And this is our new pizza business. They call it Iota. And it opened in August. It's been 8 months now since we opened this business, and it's tremendous. And the reason why we were so bold to move ahead with this idea, and it wasn't so planned, it really was more of a coincidence. It came about because sometimes I make pizza because I wanted to keep my Neapolitan pizza skills going. It's been I had over 10 years of business experience, right? So I wanted to keep it fresh. So I was making other foods and trying to keep my skills up. So I was thinking that I wanted to do an Asian fusion kind of pizza. So I use these kinds of products, and we've come up with these, right? These are specialty products that don't exist out there in the market. But I tested these out. People who were testers really liked these products on top of pizza. And sometimes people are vegetarians, right? And they want to be able to have special flavors and things. And why not be able to find a new way to do this with pizza, with cheese substitutes and this kind of things. And we found some really delicious options, even though I felt like I wasn't sure if it would work. But I got really great responses from the people who were testing these flavors. So then I went on to different kinds of booths where I would taste test these flavors that I just showed you in the glass jar, as well as sell this new clothing line that we were creating. And I was given feedback about this, and again, in repeated settings, I was given good feedback. Now, these consumers who had taste tested these items were also being in touch with me about how they could get more of it. And I told them I didn't really have a great supply. I was really just testing some of these small jars of these different interesting flavors. Hence, it led me to think with my family after great discussion, and we got on the same page and we agreed that we were completely committed. Because it would take a lot of commitment, we would sacrifice other things to do this, that we would go ahead and create this new business. And Piola was born. And the reason why we chose this name, let's be sure that we say it right. We would normally say pizza, right? We have two O's in the name, Piola. And the 2 zeros are in that name is because of Italian flour. It's a particular type that's called 00 flour. And it's all-purpose, it's not all-purpose flour because it's a very special flour that they actually call 00 flour in Italian. And so this is the reason why 00 is in our name, because it's a very unique and type of flour that really creates a wonderfully delicious Neapolitan pizza crust. Anyway, people have been all about it, and people ask me how to pronounce the name, and so I thought I would go ahead and include it in the slide here so everybody knows how to say hi. At this point, we decided that we would have a little different brand, right? Because before we had a restaurant, but now we're going to provide different products, such as frozen pizzas, as well as Asian infused pizza ideas. And I was really all about this. This was a passion of mine. There's lots of other interesting foods out there that are fusion, right? And I came from Asia and I love Asian food. So I thought, well, why not take this opportunity to marry the best of both worlds? So especially for the margarita lovers, those types of pizzas, that we'd be able to have taste comparison and quality comparisons. So I wanted to take that and build on it with my own creativity. So my ultimate aspiration was to have these pizzas out in grocery stores where people could buy them and take them home. So this is our mission. And this is important to us to be able to continue pursuing our mission, not only to bring in deaf folks to have work opportunities because they're largely unemployed or underemployed, but it's also my hope that we could grow this as a company and have more leadership positions such as managers and others within our company to help deaf people gain more work experience. And you know, during COVID, we saw many deaf folks who had some work experience, but then they weren't rehired or they were laid off because of COVID and the companies changing. And they wanted to hire then people who had experience. Hence, again, our reason to be able to provide, wish to provide opportunity for deaf folks to get work experience. So we wanted to bring deaf people in to show their capability for leadership and other types of roles. So this was a large part of what I wanted for our company and our mission. Here's an idea of our pizza flavors. These are the ones that we offer. So I just mentioned the margarita pizza, right? That's our initial, our base brand. But we also offer a vegan one, and we also have meat options. So you'll notice that there's Asian infused options here too. There's the four cheese pizza, as well as the miso eggplant one. There's an orange citrus one that has orange sauce on it. You can have that actually on the four cheese one. The miso eggplant one has a Japanese flavor with it. And then the soppressata, that doesn't need anything extra because there's actually a spicy version of that people can choose if they would prefer, and that has the extra sauce that has the interesting flavor. Asian pear actually has a Korean and Italian fusion. And then there's Hainan chicken, and people are saying, well, maybe that's more Malaysian or from a Singapore type of influence. People disagree on that. But these are fresh, they can be freshly ordered and delivered, they could be picked up, carry out, or they could be provided as a frozen option. Next slide, please. So at this point, what I really want, because I've talked about my mission and our desire to grow our business, is that we would be out nationwide, because there's so many deaf people all over the US who have been denied job opportunities, and there also a large customer base of people who want to buy pizzas in different forms, whether you can make them at home, that would be frozen. And then they could learn about us, that deaf people make these wonderful products, and they can learn about us. It makes us more visible. And to learn about how capable we are as deaf people, that we can make wonderful products. So again, this is huge for us, and I want to share this one with you. This is the spicy Cajun flavor, and we have this label here that I'm showing you. Additionally, this is one of our pizzas. You can see this as a frozen pizza, and you'll see right on our label that it says deaf and Coda family owned. We also have, and this is only locally available, because we do pop-ups and catering in different forms, as well as our local kitchen. You'll see our box that says deaf and Coda family owned. We want it to be unique, even as you open the box. So note this. To be able to infuse new signs into the customer, right? So this is part of the overall experience, to be able to demonstrate who we are as deaf people in owning this business. So we realized that we needed to give everyone a chance, whether coming into our business and offering them jobs or other opportunities. Thank you.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you so much, Melanie. You've made me so hungry. I'm ready to buy some pizza. I'm sure those of you in the audience are feeling nice and hungry too, wanting to get some pizzas from Viola. So Carol, would you mind adding Sharon to our group here? Perfect, so you can see everybody. Now we can go ahead and start with our Q&A. So let's start with our in-person audience first. You can ask a question of either presenter or both, that's up to you. But if you would like to ask a question, please come up to the front here, we'll start a line. And then it's up to you if you'd like to use your voice and speak English or use sign language, but you can feel free to ask a question of one or both of the presenters. So feel free to come on up if you'd like to ask them any questions. Let's just get a moment for the interpreters. They can get set up because they're just to the side.
I see Erwin's question here in the chat.
Here real quick.
We've got the camera set up, just troubleshooting. Hi, so I just had a question for Sharon.
My name's on here.
So with your work, in the beginning, as far as applying,
I'm in New York City. I think you were asking me if I was in New York City or not. You just moving me in for a year, so a better place.
a little easier for her to see in person. So you said in New York City, what did that look like for you as far as when you were studying, when you went, you said eventually you went to the school in Quantico? People from different states, did they come from different areas?
Yes, so they actually have labs all around the country. There's Quantico, Massachusetts, Vermont, Chicago. There are two actually in California, one in Northern California and then in Southern California. So they have bases all around the country is the point. So when you apply, you provide them with your top 5 choices. So you rate them from 1 to 5. I of course chose New York City I chose New York as my number 1. But I ended up in Quantico. And then from there you get to pick your lab. And then that's where you end up moving to and living.
Okay, so I have another question also.
Sure.
Now, you said there was a market improvement with them providing interpreters the second time, so what would you say your biggest advice is to us if we want to pursue something like forensic chemistry or a similar field? Some tip that you have for us, maybe something that you heard that was significant for you and inspiring you?
Of course, I mean, honestly, I would say it's not an easy journey. But we have to keep in mind that we are our own best advocate. We are our number 1 advocate. And then also to make sure that you're up to par on your knowledge, that you are familiar with the Americans with Disabilities Act, that you know what your risks are, and that you grow your own personal network so that if things don't go the way you want them to, you have people you can reach out to ask for help. And then in terms of working with people who don't know what or understand what your needs are, it's important to stay level-headed, right? Some people are going to be resistant, or they're going to want to argue with you or fight back with you, but you need to be patient. You need to be willing to sit with them and explain things to them and repeat things, and it can be difficult, of course. And if it gets to a point that's beyond what you can handle, we have equal opportunity offices everywhere that you can file complaints with. You can go to NAB, you can take the legal route if it was really that severe and got to that point. But thank you for your question, I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. All right, so I was thinking that for those who have a question, it may be a little easier if they move themselves over to the right side of the screen here because there's a white background that's a little bit clearer. So I know I've asked those of you to line up if you could move over to the other side where there's a white background here for your question. Hello, this is a question for Melody. So what are the benefits and some of the challenges of working with your family? I know there are a lot of different perspectives on working with your family, so how does that work for everyone in collaborating?
You know, that's a very common question that people ask me. How do you live and work 24/7 with your family? Right? It's a common question and I appreciate it. When we were in San Francisco, I worked a lot and we had 2 kids. We didn't see the kids very much because I was always at the restaurant. So the kids were really welcome to come assist us at work. And so then they saw what we were doing. And then we had a food truck, which is super tiny, I don't know,
Mhm.
20 square foot or something, all of us would be working together in that small space. But we really developed over time kind of our work dynamic together, and we really got along well. Then we bought a second food truck, and that was available in St. Louis. So the front of the truck actually had 3 seats, which worked well for us, and we could just have Russ and I in front, and the 2 kids wouldn't both come with us, but whoever really wanted to go would do the road trip. And we would do this for an entire month, so, and sometimes the kids wouldn't want to give up their summer, but sometimes one of them did, and at 16 years old volunteered to work with us. And that was great, so then they came on this long road trip together, the one who came with us. So my daughter and I then eventually set up this clothing business that I mentioned. So she's still doing that and managing it, and now I'm focused most of my energy on Pyote, but she does sometimes help me, and we have to really communicate well to decide who is in which role. So I'm definitely the mom, and sometimes I'm the business partner, and I have to clarify that's what I'm doing. And if we have disagreements, then we just have to settle them. But clarifying roles is hugely helpful for us. And Russ actually is more the business manager. He doesn't get involved in running the business other than really the financial part. Research and development is what my son is doing because he's at CSUN, and he's doing R&D, the research and development. So it's really great. He's learning about labels and nutrition, how to create frozen foods, and since that's his passion, that's going to be hugely helpful for us. And Tasha, my daughter, has her own role because she's in sales, right? So she's a perfect match for the rest of us.
I'm also wondering about, if anything has happened while working at Kiowa, maybe a situation that has happened that then carries over into your home life. And so I'm just wondering if there's anything that that happens at work that essentially has an influence over your dynamic as a family at home.
You know what, to be honest, we are horrible at separating our home and work life. It's just all one for us. We started with this brand, and we really had to work a lot. And working in the kitchen, I was there for a short time. I mean, we try and figure it out with shifts during the day, right? And we don't want to always be talking about work, so we're looking for that balance, and we're finding it difficult, to be honest.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hello. Hi, so I'm a transfer student. I came from a community college and my major in depth studies community services. So I don't know exactly what I want to do with that degree, but I'm wondering if you have any recommendations, because Melody, you talk about starting businesses, and Sharon, you seem to be more, I'm not sure if you want to guide me more to criminal justice, but those are like 2 avenues that I'm considering.
I guess I'll answer this first. I wanted to own a restaurant since I was a young child because my father influenced me as a role model. So that's where my passion came from. But it took me so many years to build up the courage to go ahead and jump in. I did have a lot of fear. What if I fail? You know, what if we couldn't afford it? We waste a lot of money and then everything is lost for us. So that's what caused me to not do it right away. But once we did it, I actually was 38 years old at the time. I wished I'd done it in my 20s when I had more energy, right? But we are where we are, right?
Never too late.
Never too late, that's right. Absolutely, it's never too late. I mean, for me, since I was a child, I loved mathematics, I loved numbers. And as I mentioned, in middle schools, when I really started falling in love with science and chemistry specifically. So for me, this is sort of my happy place. This is my fun place. And I knew for sure that I wanted a future career working in the STEM field. And I knew that I wanted to be problem solving in some way and making a contribution and a difference in this country. And the DEA really is that for me, because drugs are something that cause an incredible amount of harm to people. We are at war with people who are selling drugs to the people who live in this country. So, you know, I'm upset with the number of people who are finding themselves using and abusing drugs in this country. It's really something that upsets me a lot. And I think, especially for deaf people, because they are typically more willing to provide interpreters, I think it's a great opportunity for deaf individuals to get into government work. Which is sort of the advice that I have been given and what led me to where I am today, but it really comes down to finding your passion, and how old you are and where you live shouldn't be barriers, but it's really about finding what is interesting to you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we have 3 questions left, and I believe we're gonna be switching. So that from there, we're gonna switch over to the attendees on Zoom. So these are gonna be our final in-person questions, and then we'll start doing our Zoom attendees. Okay, so I just wanted to ask 2 questions for Sharon. So I wanted to clarify, to see, did you interview before going to the lab at Quantico, Virginia?
I did. I had my interview before I went to Quantico. Quantico is where you go once you've already been offered a position.
And how did that interview go? I'm just wondering.
So there were 4 or 5 different professionals from the field who were senior leadership, chemists, examiners. And they asked me about my experience, about my prior knowledge. They asked me personal questions about my life, what I like to do for fun, what my hobbies were. They gave me different situations and asked me how I would resolve different issues that arose. I think all in all, it was about an hour-long interview, which isn't so bad for the amount of information that they gathered, but it was really about seeing how you could connect with people, because if you can connect with them, it makes everything easier. So the interview was the first portion, and then the exams, and then the physical exams. Of course, there was fingerprinting and background checks and all of that. It was quite an extensive list of things that we had to go through. And then once you officially pass everything, then they make you the job offer. You do the 4-month intensive in Quantico, and then you have to pass the technical skills exams, the knowledge exams, and all of that, because once you get a job, you can't just go straight to the lab. You're going to be working with evidence, you're going to be working hands-on with different drugs that have been collected, so you need to make sure you go through that intensive training in Quantico first, so by the time you get to the lab, you're good to go.
Okay, so another question, what are some pros and cons of working at the DEA now that you're finally there?
That's a good question. I'll give 1 pro and 1 con. I'd say one of the pros is that I get to experience something new every day. People are so creative with what they're coming up with in the lab. And I'm learning so much. I mean, there's still so much that I don't know. There's so much terminology that I have to figure out. So I love the research component of it and learning something new every day. And it's also great. There's so much diversity. There are clubs and organizations you can get in. I really enjoy that aspect of it. On the negative side, I would say it does get lonely sometimes as the only deaf person there. While there are interpreters and people who make an effort to communicate with me, I do wish that there were other deaf people who work at the DEA and that I wasn't the only one. So hopefully in the future that would be a possibility, but the loneliness factor is definitely not.
Thank you so much for sharing. I have a question for Sharon. I'm sorry, I forgot the name.
I say that already.
So for Sharon, have you ever had family, maybe your parents or siblings that were supporting you in the beginning? Did you feel that support from them?
Absolutely. Yeah, the people in my life, my family and my close friends, were the ones who really encouraged me to keep going, especially when things were difficult. And my mom is really my biggest fan, and she has been a supporter from day one. And I was adopted. I lost both of my parents, and so I was adopted. And the mother who adopted me, it's as if she is my biological mother. There's no difference to me. And she's really the one who's pushed me and encouraged me to keep going. Whether it was a legal situation or an interpreting situation, whatever it was that I was struggling with, she always gave me great advice, and I'm incredibly grateful to her. And it's also important to have a broader security system as well, to have friends and close friends and other family that you can connect with.
And so same question to you, Melody.
Same question, okay, I would resonate something similar to what Sharon just shared, that at a given point, you have to make a decision, because you have lots of doubts, you're thinking about the pros and cons. And I spoke to my family and my friends to get their ideas and their thoughts, and I was given lots of encouragement to move forward. But I'm the one who's actually doing the work, right? I was afraid that I would move forward and nobody would be behind me. And there was actually a lot of emotional ups and downs, even times of discouragement, because after I decided I would commit, I could look to my dad because he's one of the most fearless person I ever knew. Since he was 16 years old, when he had gone to India, because China had a big war, and he ended up being a refugee. He was one of 13 children, and he had to take half of his siblings as refugees over to India until the war was resolved and they came back to China. So he set up a dance school in order to earn some money to be able to support his siblings and get through that time. And so this is where his creativity came from, and I just thought he was so imaginative and courageous. At the deaf school, when I ended up being there, I didn't see anybody really encouraging me. So, I mean, other than when I met Russ and then we had our kids, then that's when I really got my strength and knew that I wasn't by myself and found it within me to go ahead and move forward.
Okay, I have another question for Melody. So when you eat after work or before, do you like to eat pizza or do you do fast food?
Oh, will we eat pizza twice? Oh, after me, and no, I don't eat pizza. That's really the bottom line. I love Asian food, so that's my go-to, Chinese food. Other than being in the restaurant, right, we make pizza every day.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate you answering my questions.
You're welcome.
Of course, anytime.
Hey, everyone see me?
Yes, we can see you.
So my question's for Sharon. I know that you said in the beginning of your journey, you were getting involved in the DEA, and when you would go to your classes for training, there were interpreters provided that were not clear. And therefore, the information was not equally accessible to you. So my question is, I'm focused in interpreting for my major. So what advice or recommendation do you have for interpreters in training? And specifically for interpreters who are interested in working in government or other settings like that.
Of course, glad to see that question. So what happened with my interpreters? Well, we had a few interpreters I was working with. There was one who was actually pretty good, but there was something that went wrong with their contract. So I was left with two interpreters, and one was, we'll say, not bad. And there was one who was terrible. So what happened is that interpreter who was very bad had narcolepsy, and I think I misspelled that, but they would fall asleep all the time. Are people familiar with narcolepsy? I don't know how to spell it. Do you know how to spell it? Does someone know how to spell it?
It's NARCOLEPS.
Yeah, so you understand the word that I'm going for? So sometimes in the middle of interpreting, the interpreter would just fall asleep, which obviously is a problem. So they decided, and then they just sort of like drift off to the side and drift off to the front a little bit. And I'm like, okay, well, this isn't gonna work. And on the break, she would sit down at the table and she would put her head on the table and just be snoring in the middle of the classroom. And I was like, no way, this is not gonna work. He's like, give her a chance. Maybe she's working through something, but I was like, what are you doing? This is ridiculous. Interpreting is tough work. You gotta be here and alert all day. We're talking about science and technology. This is not simple stuff. So be honest with yourself. If this is too much work for you, then remove yourself from the situation, decline the job. So I would say, number one, be honest with yourself about what you can or can't do. And whether or not you know the information, do what you can to get as much prep material as possible. Like for me, I don't know it all, but I do what I can to get as much information in advance as possible. And then if you're working for the government, the DEA, anything like that, make sure you have a clean background check. Obviously you can't have any drug arrests or drug use, anything like that. You want to make sure you're just generally a good citizen, that you've filed your taxes on time every year, because they're going to do an extensive background check that you need to pass. And make sure you're doing what you can to build a resume and to build your network. Washington DC has a plethora of government jobs, so there's endless opportunities there, but there are also opportunities all over the country.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and switch over to our attendees that are on Zoom. I know we saw we had a number of comments that came in. So, Carol, would you mind, maybe I can spotlight you and you can share some of the questions you see?
Yeah, maybe if folks online have a question, they could raise their hand. And if there are questions in the chat, then maybe I can sign them. Caroline, on our end, you're freezing a little bit, so we're going to turn off our screen for now, and hopefully that helps the issue a little bit. But everyone on the screen is freezing for the folks here in person today. Sharon said there's a question in the chat from Erwin, and I can go ahead and answer that. I don't know if we want to. Okay, so Erwin's question. We get this question.
Pause for a moment.
Hang on just a second, because we don't have a question. The audience doesn't have the question. So can we see the questions somewhere? Can someone pull them up on a screen? Will give someone sign the questions to us? Okay, so we're looking at the first question here from Erwin. Are you a sworn officer or a civilian? Is the question. In terms of, can I carry a gun? Can I arrest people? Things like that. No, I cannot. A civilian is, a civilian might be working sort of behind the scenes, which is what I mean. Agents are the ones who are going out into the field, who are probably armed, who are chasing down the people with the drugs, right? I would love to do something like that, but because I'm deaf, they told me I am a threat in the field, or I'm a risk, a hazard in the field because I can't hear them. If someone were to come up behind me with a gun, something like that. So I'm in a civilian position working in a lab. And then, Melody, if you want to look at the next question here.
Next question is, as a beginner ASL student, I'm wondering if your business is willing to hire an ASL student. It'd be a perfect opportunity to expand my ASL skills over the summer, but I wouldn't want to interfere with the deaf environment that you created.
So my answer to that, I do appreciate the question, is I've had a number of students contact me, and those students are learning American Sign Language. I would just express to everyone that my priority is to provide employment opportunities for underemployed and unemployed deaf people first, because they have the greatest need. But sometimes, I mean, I would welcome the opportunity. Sometimes an internship over the summer might be an opportunity, because there's no communication barriers, right? We're a full ASL environment at our restaurant. So we're at a location in LA. And when we're catering and we're doing pop-ups in various locations, then we do have a need for interpreters, right? So that'd be a great opportunity. So please do be in touch if that's something that you're interested in. And I would follow up with the next question. This is from Lexi.
My major is at dev studies and I have a minor in photography. I love photography and I would do it as a side job sometime in the future. I was wondering how you developed your business over time, from thick and thin. I know that photography is a competitive field and hard to stand out, so what's your advice?
Right, you know, that resonates with me. When giving business advice to people in the deaf community, and maybe they already have a business and they may need something to stimulate further growth, this may be where you can come in. If you have a unique idea, you can think about what you have to offer and where your true passion lies. And then you can do some sort of brainstorming activity with a poster and be able to get your ideas down. And what you put down every morning on that big poster in your room, you may come up with a unique idea of how to expand a business. Now, for me, pizza is a very common food, right? People love it in the US. We had to distinguish ourselves between, you know, Chicago pizza, New York style, California, right? We had an idea, but we wanted to be able to stand out. And this is where we're doing it with our Asian fusion options. And at the same time, I can tell my story through these food products that we're selling and achieve our mission. So this way we can do all that we want to do. We want to provide job opportunities for underemployed deaf people, provide advancement options for leadership training. And then we have our clothing line as well, which is a separate business. So it gives us another opportunity to explain what we're all about and how often men are designing and making clothes for women's bodies. So, you know, my daughter wanted to definitely represent women and be able to create shorts, for example, because we've gone to buy shorts and you know that the hem is always directly in a circle all the way around when you put them on. The two legs of the shorts and where the hem lies, it is never comfortable and it's never in the right spot. And sometimes each leg falls at a different length. So we also wanted to include pockets, which also often is not very, it's not conducive to carrying a phone, right? You have to bring a purse as a woman because you can't put your phone in your pocket. So I wanted to have a woman-owned business that stood out from others with these kinds of considerations, such as larger pockets and such.
Carol says, hi, I have a final question, and this is for Melody. For those who are interested in trying your pizza, how can they come about finding your products?
Oh, this is great. So y'all are at CSUN, which is perfect. So we're about an hour or 45 minutes away from your campus. We're in Los Angeles, in the Hollywood area. Having said that, we're now moving to a different location, which is more east of LA. It's past the Dodger Stadium, I wanna call it Lincoln, anyway, but you can find us. You can find our frozen pizzas all over LA. So it's in 8 stores in Los Angeles, and these jarred flavor products are in Los Angeles, plus throughout the United States, even in New York City, Sharon. And we're doing pop-ups as well to be able to promote our business. Find us on Instagram and then you'll know where we are. You'll find our pop-ups.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Just waiting for my camera to pop up so
We
we can
actually
see us.
can, yeah, we actually can't see you.
Carol, would you please spotlight me? The video doesn't seem to be on, it needs to be enabled. There you go. So I just wanted to say a huge thank you. Thank you so much for coming and telling us about your background. So wonderful to know your stories. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon, and thank you to all of those that have joined us online and in person. This has just been so wonderful to see these inspirational stories. It really gives us something to look up to. Sharon never gave up, and that is wonderful, and the same thing with Melody. You know, when things, it just goes to show when things don't work out, there's always another way that we can take to find success. So, and I also want to thank the interpreters here who have come and worked with us. We can show the crowd there are interpreters as well as the crowd. Thank you, everybody. Oh, and also, we will have a screenshot, actually, we'll be posting a group photo.
And this is Peyton here explaining what this group photo situation is gonna look like. So for those of you who are here in person, if you could come down to the front, in front of the screen, so we can get everyone here. And for the folks on Zoom, if you wouldn't mind showing us your faces, come up on screen so we can get you all in the gallery view. We can get the whole group here in one big photo.
Okay, everyone, so one more announcement. Please don't forget to vote for the new DSA board members. They'll be starting next semester, okay? So please vote. And now we can go ahead and do our vote. All right, so. Y'all can come in on the side, right in a bit and closer to the screen. All right, everybody ready on Zoom? I'm joining into the group and I'll come back when the picture's done, I'll tell you. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Something silly. Okay. Something silly. All right, we're doing one more one. Let's get into the face. Thank you so much. Thank you. So you are free to go whenever you please. Take care.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.
You were answering thoughts, you look like you made some context. And this the person.